Hello, welcome to our Q&A on global invoicing today. I'm joined with Mark Wall Bradfield from Documation. Mark's been working with Documation for 25 years, has a wealth of experience across all aspects of finance process automation, and he's our go-to expert for e-invoicing at Documation. Welcome to Jeanpaul too. He's a partner manager for Thomson Reuters Pagero and worked at various companies in the e-invoicing space since 2000. Welcome to you both and thank you.
Hello.
The questions that I've prepared today are based on conversations, questions, insights, and just general subjects I've heard spoken about over the past 3 months. I've been going to a lot of conferences, attending a lot of events, and this is the kind of discussions that we've had. So hopefully they'll all be relevant to you, the audience, and you in and help you understand what global invoicing is all about. So I'm going to kick off straight away. We've got about 20 minutes, and I'm going to start with Mark.
Yeah.
What is the invoicing? How does it differ from traditional digital invoicing?
So invoicing or electronic invoicing is a method of issuing, transmitting and receiving invoices in a structured, machine-readable data format that allows for automated processes between buyers and seller systems. They're often through government-regulated networks or standardized networks. Okay, so the key point is they're structured format, they're machine-readable, it's fully automated. That reduces errors and so on, and again it's transmitted through secure networks or government portals. Traditional invoicing, I say traditional, I don't mean paper in that way, or I can, but mainly PDFs and that are unstructured. People think that's e-invoicing. It's not. It's a digital invoice, absolutely, but it's unstructured, and and they're sent via email, received via email, and so on. And obviously, there's not a fully automated process between the buyer and seller in that landscape. Whereas e-invoicing, it allows the transmission electronically between those buyers and sellers via those networks.
Great, thank you. That's really clear. And is e-invoicing currently mandatory in the UK? And if not, who's using it voluntarily?
Okay, so if you currently in the UK, if you supply NHS England, you're required to issue e-invoicing to them via the PEPL network, PEPL Biz 3 format. There are other public sector areas where they're encouraging e-invoicing as well, but in general, e-invoicing is not mandatory in the UK at the moment between business to business. Okay, it's purely voluntary. However,
Okay.
the UK government ran a consultation earlier this year looking at e-invoicing and potentially mandating it. So, and their indications are that could be with us by 2030. So it's something UK companies definitely need to be aware of. Larger, more corporate organisations are using e-invoicing, particularly if they're trading in Europe where mandates are already in place. Obviously, they're dealing with the volume and they want to take advantage of the e-invoicing automation in that area. But generally, smaller SMEs aren't embracing it at the moment.
Okay, all right, brilliant. Well, you mentioned PEPL there, so that's one for you, Jeanpaul. What is PEPL and why is it important for UK businesses?
Yeah, that's definitely a good one. I think PEPL, in short, it's just one of the invoice models we see in Europe. And I think Mark already mentioned it in the UK, but it's a model we see all across the globe, but specifically in Western Europe and the Nordics. What it is, it's not a portal. You can't go in it. It's just a framework, right? So it's a way that we say, this is the way how we exchange invoices. This is the format. This is how we send it from one party to the other one, and this is how we know how to address it correctly to an organization. That's it. Nothing more than that, right?
Okay.
Definitely, it's in the spotlight currently with Belgium mandate very close by, which is purely PEPL based. So if you look at the UK and the impact, right, we don't know where the UK is going to. Mark mentioned that as well. But if you look around the UK, Ireland, Netherlands, Belgium, they all adopt the PEPL network. So that's definitely going to impact any company in the UK which has some businesses, let's say, in other countries around him, right?
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. Mark, one for you. Yep. How does e-invoicing help reduce VAT fraud and close the VAT gap?
Well, it's exactly that. In terms of introducing e-invoicing, there is a reduction in the fraud, and obviously that reduces the VAT gap, increasing the VAT revenues. That's why it's very, very enticing for governments to introduce that. There's billions in additional VAT revenue being collected with the introduction of e-invoicing. Obviously, that's very apt at the moment with the UK budget taking place today, and that's why it's on their radar, I think, to increase their VAT collections. So it basically means there's real-time transaction data being issued to tax authorities, and it increases the accuracy of that VAT reporting. There's authentication and validation of the invoices before they're circulated, so it reduces that fraud element as well, and it also enables the automatic matching against the VAT declarations. It eliminates the fake invoices and duplicate invoices being created, and obviously tamper-proof invoices as well. Once they've been submitted, they're tamper-proof, and there's a full audit that goes with this to prove that as well. And it's all data. This is all data as well, so it allows us to apply analytics and to detect suspicious behavior as well. So effectively, it's reducing that by reducing the fraud element of invoicing that can take place, and from a government perspective, it's very attractive because it'll increase their coffers, and that's as simple as that, really.
Okay. All right, brilliant. Thank you. And then moving on to sort of what's going on the e-invoicing landscape, sort of across the world. Jeanpaul, what are the most pressing mandates for the next 12 months?
Yeah, I think in short, 26 is the year of the breakthrough, right? It's so much going on. It's the big bang, I think, that we're going to see in Europe, because with so many major economies that's coming into play. I think it was already mentioned, we've got Poland, France, Belgium, Croatia all coming up. You have to prepare for Germany with sending, which is coming live in 27. So that's already 5 countries in 1 year. And then we got this little unnoticed thing in Spain called Verifactu, which means that every company below 6 million euros also have to do e-reporting. So you got at least 6-7 countries, major economies coming into play. What I'm really curious to see about is, if you look at all those 5 mandates, will there be one country which has a decent adoption ratio? Because if we see Belgium, 60% not ready, 70% not in Spain, how this is going to work out for France in this kind of company? So very interesting year with at least 6 countries in Europe. So a lot of stuff to think about, I would say.
Okay, brilliant. And what are the different mandate models being considered? Like four corner, centralized, real-time reporting. What are the mandates that are being used in these most recent and most pressing mandates?
Yeah, I think we could just call it very, without going into specific models, we could call it messy. Look at 2026. It seems that almost every country has a different model. France, Poland, Belgium. And it's not only a different model, it's also different invoice formats. It's a different scoping. Some of them have e-reporting, like France and Poland. Belgium doesn't do that straight away. So also for companies that want to be, let's say, compliant, you really have to get into the details, what's needed in one country and what's in the other one. And that's going to be the big challenge, right?
Yeah.
To be scalable in all the different models at the same time.
Yeah, and to understand what's going on for every country and make sure you're compliant, I guess. So thinking of the compliance element, Mark, what are the risks of using non-compliant or non-standard formats?
Well, the obvious one, I suppose, and the one that draws people's attention is obviously the potential penalties and fines. A lot of these mandates come with these penalties and fines. Some a bit more stricter than others in terms of their introduction. I think governments try to be fair when they're introducing these mandates, but they're definitely there. So you'd really want to avoid any severe and repetitive sort of non-compliant issues against these. The obvious ones are obviously the disruption in operations. So if you're receiving or sending invoices that are non-compliant, they're going to be rejected, right? And that means there's going to be manual intervention required. It's not going to work with your integrations, or you'll have to manipulate your integrations to get them into your systems and so on. So there's real disruption in operations in getting invoices paid, accounts receivable invoices paid from your perspective, but also supplier invoices. Obviously, there's a legal element around that as well. So any contractual breaches and so on, any lawsuits and the costs and so on around all of that. But importantly, it's damaging relationships. So if you've already got an existing relationship with some buyers, sellers, and suppliers, for example, if they're adopting e-invoicing and you're reluctant to do so, guess what? You're not going to be able to trade with these people. So it's if you want to trade with the other partners, you need to get on board with the invoicing as well.
Okay. And how can businesses prepare for a potential mandate?
Yeah, so basically going early is preferable. Before things become mandated, have a clear vision on what's coming up and be prepared well in advance of that. That's way more efficient and cost effective to do so. You need to understand your regular, your landscape really. Where are you operating? What countries, regions are you you're operating, tax registered and so on, to understand what mandates impact you. And you need to evaluate your current processes and systems really to see if those processes are ready for the introduction of e-invoicing, and also your systems and platforms. So your ERP system, your AP automation or P2P solutions, are they in line to do that? So evaluating that readiness of your systems is really important to understand any gaps that there might be, both technically, process wise, your controls and training. And obviously once you've got all that in place, it's engaging with a partner who will help you put things in place technically and in process wise, but also help you form a long-term strategy in terms of how you're going to get e-invoicing in place first of all, but that scalability, as Jeanpaul mentioned, having the right partner who's got that scalability to say, okay, well, this is a mandate we need to adhere to now, but what's our future and how do we prepare for that, and how do we run with that into the future?
Yeah. Okay. And that leads me nicely into Jeanpaul's question here. Global finance leaders, what steps should be prioritized if you're managing simultaneous mandates across regions?
Yeah, I think I'm going to echo a lot what Mark already said. It's about getting the full picture, get the visibility on the roadmap. Don't just look 5 to 6 months up front. Look for the next 5 years.
Right.
And then get all your local teams on board, because what we see is these are still treated as isolated projects. A German team does something in Germany, the Belgian team something in Belgium, and that's derailing any let's say global strategy from the start. So I think to summarize that, what Mark said, you can't start early enough. You have to start with France already 6 months before, and think about agility. Can I squeeze in a country that might not have a mandate, but I can already start working on it? And that way you're not having resource on the bench when something slips or a mandate gets delayed. So it's about agility and getting this full picture on the entire roadmap for your company.
Right. Okay. And what are the audit and compliance advantages of structured e-invoicing?
Yeah, I always like to turn that question around. What if you're not compliant? And then now everybody always talks about fines and etc. But it's not fines that count. The biggest fears people have: okay, what if I'm totally ready? My system is ready. I can send, I can receive. But what if my supplier is not ready? What if I can't send to my customer? And yes, then the question is, am I still compliant? But it's more about how can I run my business? Because you want to send invoice, you need to get paid, and if the other party is not ready for it, how are you going to do that? So we all know this end goal is going to be pre-populated tax returns. So if you choose a solution and you have that vision in mind already 5 to 10 years ahead, then you're also going to choose a solution that ensures that compliance and can do that for all the entities in scope instead of local projects. So yes, it's going to help you. The government's going to help you as well, because they're going to take all your data, say this is your tax return. So you have to do it properly so that you don't have to get into discussions each and every time, right?
Yeah. Okay. And Mark, what are the main benefits for e-invoicing for finance teams?
Well, as I mentioned at the top, it's all about it's fully automated. This end-to-end process can be fully automated. So obviously that reduces any manual data entry or intervention, matching, and so on. That is normally associated with more traditional invoice processing. So the level of straight-through processing, as we like to call it, in AP and in AR, is much greater. You would hope that is 100%. because you're dealing with the data. You're not introducing any manual or electronic data extraction that could introduce errors. So we're reducing errors and reducing disputes, because obviously the data is all validated. You're making sure that it's got all the mandatory fields and totals and so on and so forth. So all of that is faster invoice processing. So you know, let's say reducing approval times, matching times. You're getting better relationships with your suppliers and customers. Maybe taking advantage of better terms and early settlement discounts and things of that nature. So all of that, along with lowering invoice processing costs, is beneficial. So, better cash flow management, and obviously stronger compliance and reduction of risk, exposing to the other bit, outside of the business. And along that, you've got obviously improved visibility and controls within the business as well. You know exactly where your invoices are, and so on and so forth.
Okay. And then thinking about that with the ERP integration, what are the key integration challenges that you've seen when dealing with multiple mandates across diverse jurisdictions?
Well, the key the integration challenges, obviously, there are lots of networks, lots of access points potentially, and as we say, across multiple jurisdictions. So your challenge is to, adhere to all of those different formats and so on. Okay, so you need to have a look at what those jurisdictions you're currently in and or plan to be in. As Jeanpaul said, you need to have a vision moving forward. So it's adhering with all of those. Okay, that's the biggest challenge, and making sure you've got all the integrations in place with your ERP system, finance systems. Okay, to deal with all of those, and obviously making sure that you have vision of all the, once a mandate is in place, that's not the end of the day for that mandate. It's continually evolving. So you've got to keep in touch with that. So, it's about, to address that, it's about getting the right partner that has that scalability and so on. So Documation and Thomson Reuters Pagero have a single platform. We have a single integration with Thomson Reuters Pagero from a Documation and an ERP perspective, and then Thomson Reuters have access to all of these networks and mandates and so on, to adhere to all of those. So all that work's being done on your behalf, as well as having an eye on that. They've got an eye on that ever-changing compliant landscape as well. So it's picking that right partner. So the challenges are the complexities of it all, but how to address that is pick a provider that can simplify all that process for you. Sorry, I can't hear you, Julia.
I can't hear you also.
I can't hear.
I think something went wrong on the technical side, Mark.
Yes, I think so.
But I can just pick up. I can see that the next question that she's asking about challenges for adopting invoicing. Okay. I think, Mark, it sounds like we're repeating ourselves, right? It's time. But I think what you see is the challenge is not on the IT side. People treat it as an IT project. They think it's all about the format going in, going out, and we have to do that, and then we're ready. I think you see a shift in mentality. It's also the big four putting a lot of focus on it. The challenge is on the business side, not on the IT side. This is not an IT project. It's not about a format A to B. It's about, okay, I get this done, but how does it integrate to my processes? If I'm connected to a network, I can send the invoices. Is my business optimized? Can I still work in a fast way? Can my suppliers or my buyers still process the invoice? Are they missing data?
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff. Can I reconcile my invoice from the ERP with the invoice data? That's where it gets tricky, and that's often overlooked in this first phase. And they say, no, we have to get ready, we have to get live, we have to get connected, and then everything is fine. But they don't look at the business side, and that's also why I'm always wondering, why is tech not involved? I always see an IT manager in this project, and tech's not involved. So I think the challenge is, like you said, on time, start early enough, and get the business side in the picture. It's not just an IT project, right?
absolutely. Yeah, I think we've. So I think one of Julia's next question: how can businesses ensure interoperability when choosing the invoicing software? But again, I think we've, the interoperability is critical, isn't it? So, what are your thoughts on that?
Interoperability is one, but of course, it's always about scalability, connectivity. You don't want to do things all over again. Connect to one government platform and then go to a painful process to go to another one. So what you want is a single format, a single connection to an invoice platform that says, I do the rest for you.
Yeah.
Because compliance is not your core business. So, and it's that again, it's about the business process. The question is, does it feed back into my ERP, or do I have to go every time to a portal, or is it fully automated? Like you said, do I have to take care of the latest change in legislation, or does the platform do it for me? So, interoperability, yes, connectivity, scalability. It's all about the ease of use. You work in an ERP system, you connect to an invoice platform, and they send you the relevant data back to the ERP so that you can work entirely in the ERP system and not have to switch between portals and platforms. I think that's the basic there, right? And I think that also comes to the fact, if you look for a solution, who do you want to partner with, right? To be ready for the future. I think that's something you from your experience might address as well.
Yeah, absolutely. As I say, with the Documation and the Thomson Reuters partnership, we've got that full AP and P2P capabilities that are, businesses need, but also that integration and the capability of the wider mandates and e-invoicing compliance and so on. So in terms of what finance leaders need to do to get ahead, I think we've, again, we're in danger of repeating ourselves a lot here. The thing here is, the key things there is being aware early, and again, going back to your comment about being 5-10 years in terms of your planning. So understanding that current and up and coming regulations means no surprises, and you can get things in place well in advance, so there's no rush and no panic as these mandates come online, and it allows you to get your systems ready. And it goes back to your comment about engaging with your suppliers and your customers to make sure, okay, well, I'm going, we need to go to e-invoicing. Are you ready? So it's getting those relationships in place well in advance to make sure you're all going ahead together. So you can, protect your supply chain. As simple as that.
I totally agree. I think, Mark, if we should have a shout out to everybody who's on the call, right? What I would like them to do after the call, start drawing your roadmap, start drawing all your countries where you have operations, and then look at these mandates, what's coming up for in 26, 27, 28. And then from that point of view, you're going to start looking into this. And I think what you also see is on the vendor selection side, everybody's jumping this e-invoice bandwagon. But you need a solution that you're sure is going to be alive in 10 years, right? In Belgium, we got 350 so-called providers. Lots of them don't have security in place, don't have ISO certifications, SOC, etc. I think all those experts take your time to evaluate those vendors, look at your roadmap, and then 2028 for UK or Ireland. It sounds far away, but if you start now, you're going to be sure that you're not going to be one of those many companies that are not making the deadline, and that's what you want to avoid.
Right. Absolutely. It's best to be an early adopter in these scenarios. And again, just going back to all of that, it's like e-invoicing is driven by quality of data. So always, and this should be a common practice anyway, but make sure your systems and your data is accurate, and keep that going so that's ready for when e-invoicing comes online. Because as I said at the top, e-invoicing is all about data, and quality of data is paramount. There's no doubt.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I left you for a minute. I don't know what happened at all. I hadn't full internet. Anyway, technical. I have had one question from the audience, from Kapil. How are DRR and e-invoices linked? Is that one for you, Jeanpaul, I think?
Definitely a good question. And it's also about terminology. DDR, most people call it e-reporting. And it's, of course, all part of the bigger picture, because the reason why we have this discussion here today in this call is that the governments want to crack down on the VAT cap. And the only way you can do that is to get everything structured, meaning e-invoices, and then get the data reported in real time. So DDR, digital reporting requirement, that you can see that in the European legislation that's affecting all the EU member states. That means that governments want you to report the invoice data within a certain number of time, 2 days, 4 days after you issue an invoice, right? So these things are linked because every country in the EU will have those two components: digital of e-reporting of the invoices and sending and receiving electronically. And the way that they do it is up to them. And like Belgium start with e-invoicing, while Spain start with e-reporting. And then they move on, and everyone knows that we have this magic year 2030, where we have to that each EU member state has to implement those both components. How they do it? A lot of companies do the Big Bang, 2 in 1. Again, Belgium does e-invoicing, Spain e-reporting, but within the coming 5 years, you will have this in place in each country. Report your invoices to the government, send them and receive them electronically, and also report your non-domestic invoices, because that's the second phase of that. First, you're going to report your local domestic invoices. Before 2030, you also have to report those invoices from, let's say, foreign suppliers or invoice going to foreign buyers. So that's the whole scope. Everybody has accepted that, and now we have a 5-year time frame to see how everybody will implement that and in what kind of order and what kind of step. But they definitely link together because they're part of this VIDA legislation that's going to affect every EU member state. Right. Hope that answers your question.
Thank you. I think that's good for us for today. That kind of ends our session. We've overrun slightly, not helped by my technical issue. I'm sorry, folks. If you've got any questions following this, please do get in touch with the listening team at documation.co.uk. And if you've got a particular question for Jeanpaul, get in touch with me and I'll forward that on to him and he'll get back to you directly. Thanks all for attending. It's been great, and we look forward to seeing you on our next webinar in about 2 months' time. And have a happy Christmas, everybody.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks, Julia. Thanks, Jeanpaul. Thanks all. Thank you.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.